Today, we conclude our journey through the Agile Manifesto Principles, exploring how excellence, simplicity, and self organization build resilient organizations. These principles remind us that perfection is a heading, not a destination, and that continuous improvement drives value through thoughtful choices. In an age of rapid AI adoption, they guide teams to balance quality with adaptability, avoid overcomplication, and foster innovation through self organization and reflection. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Agile for AI. I'm Sean, lean Agile coach of over 20 years with a deep passion for Agile and AI. Agile transformed my life, and I believe it holds the key to navigating of AI-powered future with integrity and purpose. I'm excited to hear your thoughts today as we explore how Agile can be a true partner in these evolving times. Let's jump in. So we've been talking about the Agile Manifesto. I've already done, this is now the fourth video on it. I've done a video on the Agile values, and then three videos on the principles. This is the third one. If you haven't watched the others yet, I'll put a link in the description so you can take a look. As we look at the Agile Manifesto, you look at the version that I'm using, I do want to draw your attention to the original version as authored by the Agile Manifesto authors, and that's at agilemanifesto.org. The version that I'm showing you is just slightly edited. The reason why I've done that is because many times teams feel that they can't relate to the Agile Manifesto because it's written with very software development-centric language. That's not necessary. The Agile Manifesto applies to any activity that we engage in where an Agile approach is suitable. So I've changed a few words just to make it more accessible in any context. And I encourage you to make your own version that fits your particular work situation and environment so that you and your coworkers can relate to it better. And lastly, the values set the ideal, the aspirational state that we want to get to. Then there are practices that we do, that's the tools, the processes and tools that we use on a daily basis. There needs to be something in between that connects these two, that allows us to use those processes and tools in a way that is consistent, that keeps us in line with the values, so that we can develop the Agile culture that we know is necessary in order to achieve high levels of business agility. That's what the principles are important. The principles don't give us a detailed prescription, they give us a guide, and we can use them to help us evaluate how we're doing every day as we are going through our Agile journey. So the first one that we're going to be looking at, the first principle that we look at, is continuous attention to excellence and good design enhances agility. And what we're talking about here is having a general idea. It doesn't have to be every single little detail worked out, but having a good idea of what the outcome, what the final result looks like, having a heading, having a North Star that helps us get there. And try to imagine putting together some furniture without even bothering looking at the diagrams. Maybe you don't like reading instructions, but maybe at least looking at the diagrams. You can end up with a lot of extra parts. I don't know. It's happened to me. Or maybe putting together your clothes away, okay? If you just lump them all together without any kind of ordering, the next time when you're looking for something, you're going to find a big chaos. Trying to find something is going to be very, very difficult. So the point here is to have a general heading, to have something. We're paying attention to where we're heading. We're not just doing things haphazardly. So Agile isn't about just do and don't worry about anything else. It will just figure itself out. Yes, we need to trust the process, and we need to have a clear heading and come up with a good sense of what the outcome is going to look like so that we can keep moving incrementally towards that direction. Perfection is important. So excellence and attention to excellence is important, but perfection in itself is an aspirational heading. It's not the end all and be all, and we're not going to get there, at least not very likely. But we can make incremental steps forward. Every single time that we engage in doing something, we can continue working, wanting to be perfect, wanting to reach those levels of excellence. Because the more that we carry that, the more that we're going to be delivering better and better products and services to our clients. So that's important to keep in mind. And when we do that as just a normal way of business, it becomes a part of our DNA. We're building excellence into what we're doing. It'll be a constant part of everything that we deliver, as opposed to having occasional lucky strikes where we deliver something wonderful and wow customers. And then they wonder, well, when are you going to have another good one? Because it's been a while. No, we want this to be something steady, something that's just part of what we always deliver. In order to be able to do that, we need to have a good foundation, a good set of guiding principles and standards, yes, but things that are helping us deliver that quote quality on a regular basis. If we're continuously changing everything without having that guidance, we can end up with a patchwork that doesn't fit together or becomes very difficult to support and maintain in the future. So this is about building sustainable quality, because we have a solid foundation and we have a solid North Star heading that's helping us move incrementally in a good direction with good quality. This is especially important when we're talking about AI, where there's so many unknowns. We are figuring it out. Nobody's done it. We're at the frontier. And when we're in that state, if we don't take the time to look and think, not for months, not for years, certainly, but as we're about to do something, let's take a step back. Let's not just jump in. Let's take a step back and let's look and see how this thing that we're about to do fits in with a bigger picture. And then we move forward. Now we can be more confident that what we're doing will fit together well and deliver good quality once we put it together. So we don't know what is best when it comes to AI. We're figuring it out, and we look as closely as possible before we implement things. And every time that we go through an iteration of something that we've implemented, we take a look, we learn from it, and we apply those learnings to continually improve, which actually mirrors the way that AI works. Time that as we're creating large language models, it goes through processes of refinement. Each epoch creates a better version of the prior. It's applying the same principle. We have a general heading. We want our large language model to deliver a particular characteristic, a particular function. And incrementally, we make it better and better at each iteration. Okay. So let's move on to the next one, which is about simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done. This is essential. Let's avoid gold plating things. We have the tendency. We finish something and we want to add more. We want to put more. Yeah, more is great, and great is even better. Let's stick to great. Let's stick to the things that we have committed to do. Let's deliver those. Then if we have time, maybe we can do something else. But first, let's deliver what we have committed. A very common challenge that I see in teams when I work with them, and one of my strongest advices is avoid overcommitting and under-delivering. That is a killer. That is going to undermine trust. That is going to undermine people's ability to believe in the teams and what they can deliver. And that creates a really negative feedback loop, because the more that we fail to deliver things, the more pressure that we're going to get from stakeholders and customers for more, because they know from experience that they're not going to get everything that we say we're going to deliver. So the pressure increases continuously until they feel that they're getting enough, okay, enough to get by. Avoid that. Always undercommit and over deliver. At the beginning, it's a very difficult conversation to have because our customers and stakeholders are, again, conditioned to us not delivering sufficiently, and they're always pushing. So at the beginning, it's a very difficult conversation to have. When we're trying to do things the Agile way, that's when it's really tough. Go through it one time, okay? Ask them to help you through the process of engaging in this new way by giving you some leeway at that moment. And what you do then is you continuously under promise and over deliver. That is going to change your relationships fundamentally with both stakeholders and customers. In order to do that, you need to have clear prioritization. You have to be very clear about what it is that you're going to do in what sequence and focus on that. If you're continuously changing your priorities, it's going to dilute your focus and you're not going to be able to deliver. You're going to fall behind. Now, prioritization is really, really important. And to define those priorities, we use a customer first decision making prioritization. It doesn't mean that we ignore stakeholders. Of course, we factor their interests and their priorities, and we put them in context to the customer's priorities. And then we have the tough conversations. And those tough conversations are going to be saying no. There are times that we have to say no because there is a higher priority of something else that needs to be delivered. And we have demonstrated that when we don't overload ourselves, we don't overpromise, we don't lie about our ability to deliver, that's when we consistently deliver good quality products. So in order to get there, we have to learn how to say no. I don't want to get into the details of how some of the practices do it. That's for later conversations. But in general terms, in the Agile spheres, there are roles in the teams that are designed to give us the clarity and the customer's perspective of what's needed to help us figure out exactly what it is that we need to do and why we need to do it, for who this work that we're doing is. And this role has a very difficult duty, which is, since they have the direct relationship with the stakeholders and the customers, they're the ones who have to have this conversation. And they're the ones who have to say, no, we're not going to do that. So sorry. We wish we could. We will keep it on our list. And when we're able to, we can revisit. But right now, no, we understand that these are your priorities. They can check, they can verify. Absolutely. And if there's agreement that, yes, the priorities that have been laid out are what needs to be focused on, then that's the answer. That's what we're focusing on. And the other stuff, so sorry, no, we're going to deliver this first. When this role fails to do that, that invariably, I see teams that are overwhelmed, marching to impossibility. And that's not fun and that's not sustainable. So we need to be very, very, very clear about what not to do. And when we're talking about AI, there's a huge risking here. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of things that we can do. All of a sudden, we have a greenfield of opportunity, and we have an opportunity to refresh everything that we've been doing. So there are no limits. It can go anywhere. If we don't have that focus, if we don't really clear, we're not really clear about what the priorities are, what our desired outcomes from what we're about to do are really, really sharp clear, we can lose ourselves in the implementation and end up not delivering or delivering substandard quality. So the value of saying no is huge to make sure that we deliver good quality at a sustainable pace. With that, let's now talk about the best implementation frameworks, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. For those of you who have a software development background, I acknowledge that this was originally written with a very technical term, which is architectures. The best architectures emerge. And again, in generalizing, I really had to think about how to express that concept in a very general term. So I chose to use the words implementation frameworks. And that's what I mean. It's an architecture. In the general form, when you think about an implementation framework, let's think about what a framework is. It is not a detailed minutia description of everything and how it needs to be executed. No, it is a general comprehensive guideline that defines a shape. Whatever we're going to do needs to look like this. And as long as we stick to that shape, we have confidence because it has been thought through very carefully that it's going to work effectively. It's going to meet the needs of the company, the needs of the customers. It's going to be easy to support. It's going to be easy to extend. All the things that we tend to care about, the framework definition gives us that. So as long as we have that, we have a good foundation to build on top of it. And that's the point in there. It's having a foundation that's solid, that everything that we're going to build on top of it, it's going to fit in a way that is easy to implement, or that it is easy to maintain, to grow, it's stable, it's steady. What this principle is telling us is that when this definition comes from some ivory tower distant group, yes, they have huge expertise, no question. And we need that huge expertise that is very scarce. It's not something that we could put into every single team. It is very focused, and it really is the subject matter experts that have the highest levels of understanding of things. And if it's just that group that's giving the definition, if it's just that group that's coming up with those definitions, there's a very real risk that what they're communicating to the rest of the organization is not going to align with day-to-day realities. We're not arguing, we're not making a case to remove those central groups and that central function. No, it is to include that framework definition and perspective within the teams, because the teams are right there where the rubber meets the road. They're the ones who are seeing how things work, where they don't work, where it would be better if we went this direction or we did these things, we incorporated these technologies, these approaches, whatever it is that we're doing. They have the best real-time awareness and expertise in dealing with day-to-day situations. So ignoring their perspective can create some very big challenges in as we're putting things together, as we're delivering new capabilities, new products and services. In doing that in a way that is sustainable, in a way that we can support it, in a way that we can extend it, that can become very difficult because we could be implementing something that's missing critical needs because the framework has not considered them. The teams are in the best position to offer that input. So we need to consider their input. We need to make sure that they have a voice, that their voice is not silenced because of some standard that needs to be followed. To clarify, we're not saying that standards are not important. Of course they are. If we don't have any standards, we are going to end up with patchwork, quillwork that's going to be very difficult, unruly, and challenging to maintain. No. We need to have those standards. And we need to incorporate the perspective of the teams who have that real-time, front of the line perspective that is so valuable to making good decisions. And we don't go the other extreme. We don't go to the extreme of it's just the team that gets to define it, because then we will end up with patchwork. We will end up with things that are completely disjointed that will make it very difficult for an enterprise to be able to implement and manage. So there needs to be a balance. That's what this is about. It's having a good balance between the two, where we've considered the high-level perspective and the on-the-ground perspective, and we've consolidated them, we've reconciled them into something that is workable. Sometimes it means compromises, of course, and we need to have those conversations. That's what's really critical. When we're talking about AI and its implementation, there's a lot that we don't know. So a lot of these frameworks will likely emerge from the front lines as we find ourselves having to respond in real time as we discover things. Doesn't mean that there are no standards, and it doesn't mean that there is no guidance going into it. We, after all, need to merge AI into our existing systems and processes. However, there's a lot of details that are still need to be figured out. So this Agile principle is very appropriate in establishing the proper perspective of how teams are incorporated into these decisions. And as we do that, we need to foster transparency and feedback loops to ensure that whatever frameworks, requirements, implementations that we're putting together are not just delivering value that the customers need, but are doing so in a way that makes sense within the broader company context. And for that, we want to be transparent. We want to share whatever it is that we're doing. We want teams to be open about what it is that they're implementing, what it is that they're thinking, giving opportunity for feedback. That feedback is really important. This is where we can have those conversations, sometimes compromise and sometimes agree that what a team is doing, while it may not be strictly aligned with established standards, is necessary for good reasons. Therefore, we move forward with it. And there's full awareness and there's full, hopefully, buy-in. But at the very least, everybody has awareness and an opportunity to provide feedback, which helps us fine-tune the implementation to something that everybody can live with. And then what we want to talk about is the next principle of, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. This one is really massive, and especially when we are under so much pressure to deliver continually, it is so easy to overlook this, and that's a huge mistake. I watch many teams do retrospectives and having one-on-ones or group retrospectives, whatever it is. They treat them more like a checklist item. They're like, oh, yeah, we went through it. Well, what came out of it? What did you learn? Are you applying what you're learning? Is anything from what you learned in your action list? Have you committed to do something about it? If we don't take care of that, if we don't do that, there's no value. There's no value in spending time. We're just wasting time talking about things that don't lead to any changes. The whole point of getting together and taking a moment, it doesn't take hours, it's just a moment to look back. We just finished doing an iteration of something. How did it go? What went well? What didn't go well? How can we use that knowledge the next time around? When we do that, every time that we go into it, it becomes a little bit easier, because the mistakes, the lack of knowledge, the lack of expertise, whatever impediments were hurting us previously, we start clearing those out. And that's what makes it easier and easier at each iteration. And that picks up speed. If we're just checking the box saying, yep, we met, we talked, and then we moved on to the next thing, nothing is going to change. You're going to stay with the same good things and the same bad things that are slowing you down. And that's a waste of time. I do not recommend spending time doing that at all. Make sure to have the conversations. And these need to be candid conversations. There needs to be psychological safety. There's something called blameless retrospectives. It's not about identifying who did what. It's about what happened. Talk about the issues, not about the people. If you need to talk about people, that's a different conversation. Better left with a subset of the group, not with the entire group. In the group, just simply talk about what happened. What did we learn? What was going on? Sometimes we just didn't know. Awareness can take us a long way to ensuring that we can overcome whatever it is that's getting in our way. And as a group, we provide different perspectives. Everybody sees things from a slightly different perspective. And when we have those conversations as a group, we can learn something that we didn't know that our teammates did. And that really underscores the point where it's important for everybody to participate in these conversations. If it's just a couple of people who are monopolizing the conversation, it's better than not having any conversation at all, but it's ultimately very limited in its value. We want to hear from everybody, and oftentimes, especially the people who are not saying anything, because they may have a different way of looking at it from others. In fact, that may be a reason why they're not speaking up, because they're hearing everybody else saying exactly the same thing, and they're going, like, well, actually, I see it a little bit different from everybody. I better stay quiet. I don't want to stick out. That's a normal human response. We want to invite that. We want to make it safe for them to say whatever it is that's on their mind. We stand a really good opportunity to learn something. At the very least, we understand how that individual is looking at things. That in itself can be helpful. When we're talking, having one-on-one conversations, the same thing, always being respectful, always having those conversations with the intent to improve, not to judge or criticize, just simply improving. That's ultimately all that we all want. This allows us to make continuous improvement for evolutionary progress. This is not about revolutionary change. It's not about changing things overnight. That's very difficult and costly and risky to do. No, this is about incrementally, little by little. When you have those conversations, when you take that time to talk about things and discover what's going on, make a list, prioritize that list. Don't try to tackle all of it. That's too much. Pick one, two, maybe three items. And your next iteration, you give a focus, attention, priority to those. They become action items in the next iteration. Give them the right priority, commit to doing something about them, and then see the benefit. If there's no benefit, okay, then maybe that's something that you need to abandon or focus on at a later time. And for right now, give it a try, see if the changes improve, and if they do improve, now you've taken a step forward. That's great. We continuously build on our successes and our failures. This is so important. In Agile culture, we're not afraid of failure. We construct things in such a way that any team can afford to have a complete failure in an iteration and recover the next iteration. That's a good way of setting the work up. And then failure, there really is no such thing as failure. It just becomes a learning moment. We learn something. We learn that this implementation doesn't work. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to shift into a better implementation. We implemented something that completely missed the customer's expectations. Okay, we lost that, and we're going to use the conversation that followed to fine-tune the conversations that we need to have in order to know for sure what is going to be of best value to our customers. We learned something. There's always something that we can learn at each iteration. Let's use that to improve. As I already mentioned, AI itself uses, when building its language models, it uses this concept of every epoch improving, refining, using what was learned in the prior, getting that feedback to fine-tune its effectiveness. We use the same process, the same approach to improve the team's effectiveness. And again, transparency and inspection, they're really critical. We're open about these things. We share them with others. And there I want to clarify one thing. We share our learnings with others, yes. We don't share detailed transcripts of conversations that we have when we're engaging in this activity. That undermines psychological safety. Do not do that. I have seen teams that have been asked, or because of prior conditioning, you have a meeting and there's going to be detailed minutes of the meeting. Everything that everybody said ends up on a public intranet. No. That is going to ensure that people don't speak up. We want to have team agreement that anything that they're comfortable with sharing can be shared, and anything that they're not comfortable doesn't get shared. That needs to be respected. Otherwise, teams will just stop talking, and then there's no value in having these conversations. So we need to balance. There needs to be transparency. We want to share our learnings. Because it might help other teams. Okay, so we want to be open where we can be open, and we want to respect the team when the team says no. That's really important. So with that, we've now covered all of the Agile Manifesto, the 4 values and the 12 principles. I've spent now, this is the 4th live stream talking about this. And the reason why I've done this is because I have observed over and over again many Agile transformations that barely, if at all, talk about the Agile Manifesto. I think that that is something that you need to think about very carefully, and you need to avoid just skipping over it. I've talked about how the introduction of screws into mainstream society took a long time. And that was because the mindset that the general population had was attuned to nails. This screws was this new thing. The mindset hadn't shifted in order to be able to use the screws. Until we change the mindset, the screw is not going to help us. Until we change our mindset, which the Agile Manifesto guides us, provides the blueprint on how to do, we're not going to reap the full benefits of the Agile practices. So yes, the Agile practices, the processes and tools are critically important. Without them, we are not equipped with the tools that we need in order to deliver true business agility. So I've said this many times, and I want to be very clear. I don't want to be confusion. Processes and tools are important. And the processes and tools that Agile espouses are designed to deliver that high level of business agility. And just like that screw is really, really, really good at some things, if we don't change our mindset, we're going to continue using nails or treating that screw as a nail. And that doesn't work. That creates a mess. Be very careful. Remember that the values define that aspirational mindset, the mind state that we want to be in as we're working through difficult, undefined, unclear, changing work. The principles are the glue that allows the bridge that allows us to get from that ideal state to the day-to-day execution. Leverage the Agile Manifesto to help you get there, to get the best out of the processes and tools that you're learning. And the way to do this is not by listening to this, watching these videos once, or going to the website agilemanifesto.org and reading it once. That doesn't help, okay? You need to do this over and over again. I recommend that you have conversations with your teams, that you yourself, you bookmark agilemanifesto.org and you read it from time to time. Refresh your memory on it. Every time that you read it, you're going to see a new word. You're going to discover, oh, gee, I hadn't really looked at that word. What does that word mean? That will help you think it through. And if you have conversations with your teammates, that will help all of you better understand it. If you keep this fresh, if you're regularly reviewing it, the good sign becomes when you find yourself in the middle of doing something and you go, hold on a minute, is this consistent with the Agile Manifesto? That's a really good sign. When I see that in teams, I get really, really, really happy because I know that they are heading in a really good direction. It's when people say, oh yeah, the Agile Manifesto, yeah, they mentioned it at the beginning of this transformation, but I don't remember what it is. Or there's a website on it, we'll have to look it up. No, that's not a good sign. People underestimate the value of this document, and they don't leverage its benefits. You can overcome that by making it a priority to review it on a regular basis, as often as possible, and then really think about it. Evaluate what you're doing against it. Identify where you're not in alignment and take whatever steps are necessary in order to get to that alignment. As we're looking at AI integrations, this becomes so much more important. because AI is at this moment all about uncertainty and unknowns. This is the mindset that helps us navigate through that. So to not delve into and really understand what that mindset is all about, to really incorporate it into our thinking, yeah, we're just hammering screws. We're going to make a big mess. So let's not do that. Let's spend some time looking at this, really thinking about it, talking about it, and then taking incremental steps to adhere to what the Agile Manifesto is telling us. And with that, I want to sincerely thank the authors of the Agile Manifesto for having put this together. Clearly, there was incredible level and amount of thinking that went into it. And it's provided to us a fantastic tool to help us reshape the way that we work. We've been working in a particular way for thousands of years, and shifting that's a tall order. And they were successful in giving us the beginning. This is a really good beginning. It's up to us to embrace it and take it further, to further refine it, clarify it, and to follow it to wherever it leads us. So with that, I always thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to the next time. I look forward to any comments, and like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thank you.